Right, how's it? Time for another video. Sorry, it's been like a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks since I've recorded. I've been so sick, and just yeah. And listen, when I'm sick, it sounds terrible. I'm still a little bit clogged up, which you might hear. But yeah, thought I'd have a very cool chat about what happened this last weekend, which was South Africa winning the Rugby World Cup, which if you're a South African is like a big deal because we love rugby. But I thought I'd chat about what actually went down and the process of it, and I think it's just fascinating. I was watching the game, and besides of just being incredibly stoked that we won, I think there was just phenomenal moments throughout the game, throughout the tournament that I think is really interesting and worth touching on. Um, so yeah, just the process leading up to the World Cup was very odd. Is that there was like coming into the final, me personally, I was like, there's no way we're gonna win. I saw the England versus New Zealand game, when England knocked out New Zealand, and I was like, oh, if that's English, oh, there's no way we can come back from that. We can come up against that just because the two games leading up to the final was England, Japan, no, South Africa, Japan, and South Africa, Wales, and in both those games we played not not how we should be playing. Like the Japan game, we were lucky for a win, and in the Welsh game, both teams were just making so many mistakes. It just was. Oh, there's a bee in my car. So many mistakes and stuff, and I was like, it's like schoolboy errors, and Villy could not catch a ball, and Faf is kicking the whole time, though it did work really well. Backline wasn't getting the ball. There were fumbles, there were drops. Forwards were always strong, but at the same time, Beast goes off and does like a childish thing, picking people up. So just the overall discipline and mentality going into it, I personally was like, oh, there's no way we're going to win this game. But I remember watching the first game we played, which was us versus New Zealand, the very first game, which was basically how everyone thought the final was going to go. And our first 10 minutes of the tournament was probably the greatest rugby I've seen us play up until the final, because the mindset we had going into that game was phenomenal. And I think really the mentality was, after New Zealand got out, we really got our second win, and England was on a mental back foot. But anyway, those are all things that surround the situation and stuff like that. But I think, firstly, Rassie Erasmus did a fantastic job of coaching the guys, and I think that it probably cannot be understated enough. But anyway, getting into the actual game, I think we arrived with a mentality that we were going to win. It was weird. It wasn't like overconfidence to the point where we were definitely going to win this. There was just this, I would describe it as complete understanding of the entire team, and you saw it in the first 10 minutes. There was this weird kind of like, I was watching the thing, and everything's the same, and then all of a sudden the kickoff, and I see the moment the ball gets caught, and then the way the forward pack moved, the way the back line was set up, the defense when England got the ball was just a whole nother tier that I hadn't seen prior, and it was just one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. Just from that moment, and I was like, wow, we might be in this. And usually this is now South African rugby in a nutshell, is that usually that happens for like 10 to 15 minutes during a game, and we're like, and every side everyone's like, oh, see, we can play rugby, we're so good at this, and then it breaks, and then some mentality, and then a mistake is made, and then everything crumbles. So I was pretty confident that, listen, we got 20 minutes of this awesomeness, and then it was like 20 minutes, then it was like 25 minutes, and now in the game at this point, England gets onto our 5 meter line on our try line. And there must have been 10, 15 minutes. It felt like the whole game where they were just ball phase after phase after phase. It must have been like 20 phases or something ridiculous of them just picking up and going off the ruck. And it was just this mutual understanding across the whole South African team that was in defense there of like, they were not going to score. And saying it out loud takes away from what I saw. And I think anyone who actually saw the game will understand what I mean when I said it was like everyone decided that wasn't going to happen. And it was just as mutual. And it wasn't like cocky. It wasn't like, oh, no, there's no way you're getting passes. It was like everyone knew what their exact job was in that game to not let them score. And it was just this complete mental fortitude. And I would say that England, we both teams are fantastic teams in their own right and stuff like that. And seldomly do you see those moments in sports where it becomes an absolute battle of men. Like, because there's moments where, like, Russia versus Japan and things like that, where it's just the caliber of teams are just way off, and it's just not in the same playing field. But firstly, the caliber of the teams was the same, but it was the mental I think it was probably one of the best finals ever. But the mental decision of both teams, and you could see it, and it was almost like England just was there, and then every single phase they were just like, whoa, 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 and there was just this kind of like, not that they were not mentally prepared, not that they weren't on point, because they were playing well, but it was just not on the same level that we had arrived, like physically. Like, not only was the physicality there, but the fortitude. And I'm just going to keep saying the same thing over and over again, but it must have been phase after phase of phase. And then eventually they pushed back, and there was this kind of understanding that it was not going to happen. And I would be so fascinated to hear what Rassie had said during the change room. I think the conversation that happened in the change room would have been incredible. But I just speak to the incredible cultivation of that mentality, and to sustain that mentality under the pressure, like those 15 guys or the 22 guys, because obviously the forwards get swapped out and stuff like that. It wasn't as if individuals were like better than the rest of them. Like, there's always that thing when Beast gaps the ball, everyone starts Beast, and it wasn't as if there were any real standout players. Like, it was this incredible kind of across the board. Everyone was just firing on all cylinders, and it was supportive, and it was just fantastic. And I mean, there were moments in earlier games where like Chesney Colby had like wowed us with his speed, and he did score that try, which was incredible. But the team had set him up for that, and there was this mutual understanding, I think. And then there was the other try where the outside centre kicks to or was the outside centre, I don't know, and the wing, and anyway, kick ball up, past, score, but it was this mutual kind of understanding of, he passed that ball because he knew his team was there and he had a better chance. And there was this, and then even the commentator said like that presence of mind to let go of a try in a World Cup. Because remember, this is the pinnacle of your professional sporting career, and to let go of a try in that sense, where he might have been able to make it, but there was no second guessing it. It was just in his hands and gone. He didn't even catch it and calculate could he could make it. He just knew that he was the wing was going to definitely make it. And so that kind of presence of mind to give away a moment like that in sport, I think is just incredible. And it was full of moments like that in the game where the team really just, anyway. And then at the end of it, obviously there were speeches and stuff like that. And I wasn't some people were moved by the speeches. I wasn't particularly moved by the speeches. And I think it was kind of the normal expected, what you say at the end of a World Cup if you're South African. But I think what really got me is watching the team come together to celebrate that. And there was a moment of shock, disbelief, and then obviously excitement that they won. And it was just the most incredible. And there's a picture of even Esabeth kissing that props forward, I don't know his name. But moments like that, I think, is just from a purely leadership perspective and from a team building and from an organizational understanding, is that what we saw on that field, I think, is one of the most incredible sporting events in modern times, or at least for me for this year right now. But in general, I think the conversation needs to be had about, yes, there was good rugby, yes, we played well, yes, all those things, but it was the mental fortitude that happened when those guys ran out. And it was interesting that wasn't really the conversation. It was kind of just like, yeah, well, that kind of happened. And I think if you spoke to the guys, they wouldn't necessarily point towards that, because I'll be like, yeah, no, we just went out and played our game, you know? And each one of them, but the deeper understanding of that from someone outside the organization looking in, I think it was just an incredible accomplishment from the leadership, from the organization, from a mentality standpoint. And those 15 guys, 23 guys, were just a unit, and it's how New Zealand always plays rugby. But we did it with such, it was just a beautiful thing to watch. And I think I'm going to rewatch the game again and pick out those little moments. But it was really just a fantastic end to a tournament. And just everyone, anyway, I think the overall, what we saw was just beautiful. And I think you have to appreciate moments like that when you see them. And I think any kind of business leader or sporting leader, or anyone who leads a team, should look towards what happened in that game, what happened with the opponents, what happened leading up to it, and really just take away as much as you can from how your team needs to look as a unit when facing obstacles in the market, in the environment, in times and things like that, especially in the world we live in. Yeah, I just think it was super understated, and someone needed to chat about it. But yeah, anyway, that's my 2 cents on the Rugby World Cup. Congratulations to the South African side, and yeah, it's just also very funny just seeing how rugby pulls us together as a South African, as a South African, as a nation. The amount of excitement that comes from the World Cup is truly fascinating and enjoyable to watch. But yeah, anyway, can't wait for the next game. Super congratulations to everyone on the team. Not that you guys are ever going to hear this, but yeah, I'm incredibly proud. And Peter Steph Toy won the 15-a-side man of the year or whatever. Couldn't be more deserved. I think he was one of the most incredible players consistently over the period, as well as what's his name, the inside center, Delaney. I think he was also just incredible over the tournament. But yeah, great. Have a good day, week, your life, and yeah, I think lead your team to a point where it doesn't look like there's a leader, because that's when teamwork flourishes. Like, yeah, I think that's really my takeaway, is that everyone on that team was equally responsible for everything that happened, which I think doesn't happen that often. And when it does happen, it's an incredible thing to watch. But yeah, cool. Cheers.